They held a family vote and cut me out, so I dropped the truth on the table and walked out forever. Thanksgiving started with turkey and ended with betrayal. My sister stood up, smiled, and said, "We voted. You're not part of the family anymore." And they clapped. They thought I'd beg. Instead, I dropped a folder full of screenshots, receipts, and secrets that made her husband go pale and my mom fall silent. Then I handed them an envelope, revoking power of attorney, cutting legal ties, and walking away from decades of guilt. They called me selfish. I called it freedom. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Thanksgiving was supposed to be warm, familiar, the kind of gathering where you pretend everything's okay even if it's not. But this one hit differently. Just as we were about to carve the turkey, Natalie stood up from her chair with this smug little smile plastered across her face, like she was rehearsing for some reality TV drama. "Before we eat," she announced, as scanning the table like a judge ready to deliver a sentence, "there's something we need to say." The whole room froze. Forks hovered midair. My gut twisted hard. I recognized that voice, that performative tone. It was the same one Mom used when she grounded me for a party I never even went to. Natalie took a deep breath and said, "We had a family vote," pausing for dramatic effect, "and we've decided you're not part of the family anymore." Just like that. Silence followed. A few beats later, actual cheering broke out. My cousin Lindsay clapped like she just watched a Broadway show. Uncle Mike raised his wine glass. Even my mom chuckled and muttered, "Well, someone had to say it." I just sat there, stunned, stuffing cold on my plate but my blood boiling under my skin. My dad didn't even look at me, just took another sip of his beer and mumbled, "It's probably for the best." I pushed my chair back slowly and said, "Wow, you guys actually rehearsed this." Natalie's smile stretched wider. "You've been toxic for years," she said, casually reaching for the cranberry sauce like this was just another Thursday. "We're done pretending you're family." I looked around the table. Not one person objected. Not one. My voice stayed even. "Good," I said, soft but steady. Then I reached into my backpack and pulled out a thick folder. I placed it right in the center of the table with a soft thunk that cut through the awkward laughter. "I figured this might happen," I said, leaning back in my chair, arms folded. Natalie frowned. "What is that?" I nodded toward it. "Why don't you find out?" She grabbed it like she was about to win something. But the second she opened it, her smirk vanished. Her face drained of color as she flipped through the first few pages. Then she let out a scream, like a full-on horror movie scream, and shoved the folder away like it had burned her. Her chair crashed behind her. "You monster," she hissed. "You twisted freak." The table fell into dead silence. Joel, her husband, picked up the folder and started reading. His jaw dropped. "Is this all real?" he asked without looking up. I nodded. Every word. Every receipt. Every screenshot. The silence that followed was louder than anything they'd ever said to me. Natalie stood frozen, her face pale as snow while her eyes darted across the pages like she was reading a death sentence. Joel kept flipping through, each page hitting the table with a soft slap that felt louder than it should have. The air in the room was thick, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to collapse or combust. Natalie finally snapped, "This is a violation, you had no right to do this." I stayed seated, calm as ever, and said, "You just stood in front of the whole family and told me I wasn't part of it. You all clapped. And now you're mad that I came prepared." Joel's hand trembled as he turned another page. "What is this about Santa Monica?" he asked, his voice low but sharp. Natalie flinched. "Don't start," she snapped. "Who's Alyssa?" he shot back. "Why were you at a hotel for 3 nights on my credit card?" Natalie didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her silence screamed louder than anything. My mother finally leaned forward, hands raised like she was defusing a bomb. "Can we just all calm down and talk like adults?" I met her gaze and said, "Sure. Let's talk about the time you called me a parasite while cashing the check I sent you." Her lips parted, then closed. "That's not fair," she mumbled. "We were under stress." "No," I snapped. "You were under stress. I always bailed you out. And the one time I say no, suddenly I'm the villain." My father, who'd been quiet all this time, finally spoke. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. I turned to him, my voice low and cutting. "You let them do this to me for years. You knew. You heard it. And you stayed quiet because it was easier than standing up to them." He didn't argue. He just looked away. Natalie slammed her palm on the table. "You're just bitter because no one needs you anymore." "Wrong," I said, letting the word hang. "I'm not bitter. I'm done. She laughed, cold and shallow. You're pathetic. Bringing a folder? Printing out screenshots? You think this makes you the victim? You're just proving how controlling you are. And you're just proving, I said calmly, that you only cared about me when I was paying your bills. Her eyes narrowed. You chose to help. No one forced you. I leaned forward. And yet you expected it every time. Until it wasn't help anymore, it was obligation. And when I stopped, you voted me out. My voice cracked, not from sadness, but from anger I'd buried for too long. You didn't want a brother. You wanted a walking wallet. Joel stood up, folder in hand, eyes still locked on the documents. Is this all true? He asked, not looking at her. Natalie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. You lied to me, he said, voice flat. About the hotel. About the money. About him. You made him out to be crazy. I had to, she finally shouted. He was turning everyone against me. I wasn't, I said, slowly standing. You did that all by yourself. The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. My mother tried again, voice softer this time. We may have overreacted, but we're still family. Let's not do this. I shook my head. You're not listening. I'm not here for peace. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you, I'm finished. Natalie scoffed, rolling her eyes. Oh please, you've said that before. I stared at her, my voice steel. Not like this. Then I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out an envelope and dropped it on the table. Joel caught it before it slid off the edge. He opened it, read the first line, and his eyes widened. What is this? He asked, barely above a whisper. Power of attorney revoked, I answered. Medical proxy revoked. Emergency contact info updated. I've already signed the legal papers. I'm no longer responsible for any of you, legally or emotionally. My mother gasped, tears forming in her eyes. You're cutting us off completely? Completely, I said. Starting now. You're being selfish, she whispered like she was shocked. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. I looked at her one last time. My voice dropped to a final certain note. No, you're not. Then I picked up my coat, glanced at the table one last time. Stuffing now cold wine, half drunk, faces pale and stunned, and walked out the door without looking back. This didn't start on Thanksgiving. That moment was just the final scene in a play that had been quietly building for years. The truth is, they didn't suddenly decide I wasn't family. No, that verdict came brick by brick, through every backhanded comment, every silent betrayal, every moment they needed me but never saw me. Natalie had always been the golden child. The one with the shiny smile and the loud laugh that could charm anyone in the room. Straight A's in high school, captain of the cheer squad, queen of excuses. She could lie to your face and have you thanking her for it. I wasn't like that. I was quiet, stayed in my lane, never demanded much attention, which they took as weakness. I didn't need the spotlight, and somehow that made me the outsider. I moved out at 19. Paid my own way through college. 2 jobs, full course load, no financial help. Not even a how are you managing. Meanwhile, Natalie dropped 2 majors, went on a soul-searching trip through Europe, and came home to marry Joel, a man who looked like he was grown in a LinkedIn laboratory. But when it came time for their wedding, I paid for half. My parents couldn't afford it, though that didn't stop them from booking a cruise right after. Did I complain? No, I never did. Even when they joked about me being the family accountant, I kept helping. I paid for Dad's dental surgery, sent money when Mom said the heat bill was overdue, even chipped in for my cousin Lindsay's college costs after she lost her scholarship. I told myself it was just what family does. But slowly, helping turned into an expectation. Then it became a requirement. The jokes got meaner. Of course you brought wine. Must be nice to afford the good stuff. Or you're early. No kids to deal with. Then it shifted to, I wish I could work late every night to avoid my spouse too. I laughed it off. Until I couldn't anymore. Natalie started treating me like a personal safety net. When Joel lost his job, she called me first. Just a small loan. When her car broke down, she asked for $2,000 like it was chump change. You make 6 figures, she said. When her kid needed therapy and insurance wouldn't cover it, I stepped in again. Because I always did. I kept telling myself it was family. But it wasn't. It was obligation dressed up as love. And when I finally said no, when Natalie asked me to co-sign a loan for her in Joel's Wellness Cafe, and I declined, that's when the ice set in. That was 3 months before Thanksgiving. After that, the silence was deafening. Mom stopped calling. Dad responded to texts with one-word answers. I wasn't invited to the last family dinner. Natalie blocked me on social media after I posted about cutting off toxic people. But I didn't get angry. I got organized. I started digging through old files, scrolling back through texts and bank statements. Because I keep everything. And in just the past 5 years, I found over $78,000 I'd sent to my family. 78 grand. 8,000 for Joel's rehab. $2,300 for Natalie's emergency dental work, which turned out to be veneers. $1,500 for Dad's back surgery. $12,000 to pay off Mom's credit card debt. $6,000 for Lindsay's college move-in costs. $4,500 for a family emergency that ended up being a beach trip to Cabo. Not one of them ever offered to pay me back. Not once. And when I stopped giving, I became the problem. So I built the folder. Every wire transfer, every Venmo screenshot, every guilt-tripping message begging for help. I even saved the Instagram comment where Natalie called me a spineless cash cow, thinking I'd never see it. But I did. That folder wasn't revenge. It was clarity. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. That they really had been using me all along. And when I laid it on the table at Thanksgiving, they didn't just see receipts. They saw the truth, ugly, undeniable, and finally impossible to ignore. It started with a text that looked harmless on the surface. "Hey," Natalie wrote. "Joel and I have this idea. We want to open a wellness cafe. Can you co-sign a small business loan?" Just like that, casual, like she was asking for a recipe, not a signature that could tank my credit. I stared at the message longer than I cared to admit before finally replying, "No, Natalie. I can't do that." She didn't argue. She didn't thank me. She just hit me with a dry wow. "Really?" And then she disappeared. Silence. No follow-up. No check-in. Just nothing. That's when it hit me, not all at once, but like a slow drip of clarity. They only ever reached out when they needed something. Not to ask how I was, not to catch up, not to say thanks, just to ask. Or more accurately, to expect. I'd been playing the role so long I hadn't noticed the script. I was the fixer, the ATM, the fallback plan. And when I stopped playing along, they didn't miss me, they missed what I could do for them. That realization broke something loose inside me. It wasn't just about the money, though the money was a big part of it. It was about how I never mattered unless I was useful. They didn't just forget birthdays or skip out on helping me move. They dismissed me when I needed backup, avoided me when I set boundaries, and made me the punchline of their dinner table jokes. Must be nice having no responsibilities. "Oh, Dan's here early, no kids, no husband, no life." Always with a smile, always coated in fake warmth, but it chipped away piece by piece. I started going back through old texts, emails, receipts. It wasn't difficult. I'm the kind of person who keeps records, not because I expected this, but because it's how I operate. I began pulling everything together: wire transfers, screenshots of passive-aggressive messages, social media posts they thought I'd never see. Some were more painful than others. Like the one where Mom commented under a Facebook photo of me alone on my birthday, "At least he's used to being by himself." Or the Instagram message where Natalie called me, "Nothing but a walking bank account." She didn't know I'd been added to that thread by accident. That message stayed with me. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it confirmed what I'd been afraid to say out loud. They didn't love me. They tolerated me as long as I was handing out lifeboats. Once I stopped, I became disposable. So I compiled everything. I wasn't sure why at first, maybe just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that the years I'd spent being dismissed and used weren't just in my head. But the more I built it, the more I realized this was no longer just about validation. It was about ending the cycle. The folder was growing, page by page, and with every click, every memory, every note scribbled in the margins of an old bank transfer, I felt lighter. I wasn't planning revenge. I was preparing truth. The kind that can't be argued with because it speaks in numbers, dates, and digital ink. They thought I'd always be the quiet one, the reliable one, the single guy with no real responsibilities. But they forgot that people like me, we pay attention. And when we finally speak, it's not with noise. It's with evidence. The day after Thanksgiving, I sat at my kitchen table with the folder still on the counter, untouched since I dropped it in the middle of the chaos. I didn't open it, I didn't need to. I knew every page, every line, every dollar because I'd lived it. But now that the truth had landed, it was time to finish what I started. It wasn't enough to walk away emotionally. I needed to walk away completely. So I made the calls. First to the attorney who handled the family trust. Yes, I had been the one they appointed as executor years ago. Me, the irresponsible single guy with no real life. Funny how they trusted me with everything when it was convenient. But not anymore. I signed the documents to revoke my power of attorney, removed myself as Mom's emergency contact, and submitted the paperwork to terminate all medical proxy responsibilities. I froze every joint account they could access, changed my passwords, even got a new number. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. The law would. For the first time in my life, I had no legal obligations to them. And it felt like someone had cut a rope that had been quietly wrapped around my throat for years. But the emotional part? That was harder. There's something brutal about admitting that the people you loved most were never really standing with you, only standing on you. Still, I knew what had to be done. I had to stop being their lifeline if I ever wanted to breathe on my own. The old version of me, the one who said yes out of guilt, who rescued them with no hesitation, who hoped every check would be the one that earned a little love, that version had to go. He'd been loyal to a fault, generous to the point of self-erasure, and in the end, no one even noticed when he started to disappear. They never saw him, they only saw what he could give. So I let him go. I wasn't cold. I wasn't bitter. I was clear. Crystal clear. I wasn't theirs anymore, not legally, not financially, not emotionally. I didn't owe them explanations or comfort, or even closure. And for the first time in decades, I felt like I had finally stepped into my own life. Not the one built around their needs. Mine. I wasn't the emergency contact. I wasn't the fallback plan. I wasn't the invisible net they assumed would always be there. I was free. The days after I walked out were strangely quiet. It was like the world had gone still, holding its breath. I expected the texts, the calls, the guilt trips, but somehow nothing came for the first few days. It was like the calm before a storm. Then came Christmas. And with it, the first wave of desperation. On December 22nd, I got a message from Mom. Just a photo of their living room half decorated. The Christmas tree was up, but there was an empty space where the presents should have been. The caption said, "Doesn't feel the same without you. Ellie constantly wonders why Uncle isn't coming this year." I stared at the message, that same manipulative tone cutting through me like a knife. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just guilt. "Look at what you've done," it seemed to say. "Look at who you're hurting." It hit me then, this wasn't just about missing me. This was about making me feel responsible for the whole damn family. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. That night, Natalie tried calling. I let it ring out. 2 minutes later, she sent another message. "I realize I messed up, but you don't have to punish everyone. Please come by for Ellie. She misses you." A few seconds after that. "Mom and Dad are behind on their mortgage. I know you don't care anymore, but the bank called today. I figured you'd want to know." That was it. The same old trick. A little sprinkle of guilt, topped with a side of financial desperation. I blocked the number. No second thoughts. No hesitation. On December 24th, Dad sent a text. "You made your point. We get it. But that's enough. We still need help. We're still your blood." The words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating, impossible to ignore. It was the same story. They needed me, needed my help, my money, my constant presence. But this time I didn't feel the pressure to cave. I didn't feel the weight of responsibility crushing me. Instead, I felt relief. Peace. I sat in my tiny apartment that night, alone by the fireplace with a glass of wine, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. No calls, no demands, no guilt. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't scream for attention. The kind that lets you breathe. I knew they weren't done trying. But I was done. The next few days went by without a word. But then, on December 26th, the texts began again. This time from Natalie. "You don't even realize what you've done. Joel's filing for divorce. Are you happy now?" I stared at the screen, the words sinking in slowly. "Something is really wrong with you," she added. "You should have come back to us." Then came the message from my father. "You went too far. We all said things we regret, but what you did was nuclear. Your mother's a wreck. Come fix this." They were desperate. I could feel it in every word. They wanted me back. Not because they loved me, but because they needed something from me. Their world was falling apart, and the only person they thought could hold it all together again was me. I didn't respond to any of them. Not a single word. I knew they expected me to feel guilty, to come running back like I always did. But this time I didn't. Instead, I slept better than I had in years. There was no more second-guessing. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more emergency requests disguised as family love. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trapped. I wasn't the safety net anymore. And it felt freeing. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I woke up without a heavy weight on my chest. There were no missed calls, no desperate text messages, no guilt-laden voicemails asking for money or favors. It was quiet, a kind of peace I didn't know I'd been craving. I didn't have to rush to pick up the pieces of everyone else's mess. I didn't have to listen to the same old excuses. The house was calm, and for the first time, I felt like I could actually hear my own thoughts again. I started waking up early, not because I had to, just because I could. No longer was I buried in the whirlwind of family drama, financial demands, and emotional manipulation. I made coffee the way I liked it, slow and rich, savoring each sip without feeling rushed or resentful. I started going on runs, just me and the pavement, no distractions. It felt good to move my body without the weight of obligation hanging over me. I began making appointments that I had put off for years. A dentist visit, a doctor's checkup, even therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I was finally free to take care of myself without worrying about who I was neglecting in the process. I'd spent so many years making sure everyone else was okay, convincing myself that if I kept giving, eventually they'd see me, that they'd appreciate me. But the truth was, I'd been giving pieces of myself away, and I was running on empty. Now I was filling those spaces again, slowly, quietly, without apology. I even started cooking for myself, actually cooking. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it, the way a good meal could nourish more than just your body. There was something deeply satisfying about preparing my own food, sitting down at the table, and not having to share it with anyone unless I chose to. I wasn't keeping the peace for anyone else anymore. It was just about me, my choices, my life. The biggest change came in how I saw myself. For the first time, I wasn't defined by my family's needs. I wasn't the fixer, the provider, the silent one who just did and gave. I was me. I found my sense of self-worth again, not in the things I did for others, but in the quiet moments when I realized I had nothing to prove. I had been enough all along, even when they couldn't see it. It wasn't always easy, of course. There were moments, small fleeting moments, when I wondered what they were doing, what they thought, if they missed me. But those thoughts never lasted, because I knew deep down that I was better off. They hadn't just used me. They'd taken pieces of my soul and buried them under their demands. But now I was whole again. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their love to feel validated. I was enough. For the first time, I didn't just survive, I lived. I woke up each day with a sense of freedom I hadn't known before. There were no more late-night texts asking for money. No more passive-aggressive comments about my life. Just silence. The kind that made room for real joy. The kind that allowed me to rediscover who I was outside of their expectations. A week after Thanksgiving, I thought it was over. I thought they'd taken the hint, that the silence meant they'd given up. But then the letters started. The first one came from Mom, handwritten, just like the old days when she guilt-tripped me into doing something I didn't want to do. The letter was full of regret, apologies that didn't quite feel genuine, like she was saying what she thought would make me come back. She wrote about how hard things had been without me, how we've always relied on you. You've been the strong one. She claimed she was sorry for the things she said and that maybe, just maybe, we could move past it. I didn't even finish reading it. I knew what was coming next. The guilt, the emotional manipulation, the "we're still family" line. I folded it up, walked to the trash, and threw it away. I didn't even flinch. A few days later, Natalie sent a message. She didn't even try to disguise it this time. The usual tone was gone, replaced by something desperate. She said, "I realize what I did was wrong, but you don't have to punish everyone. Just come by for Ellie. She misses you so much. Ellie. Her daughter, the innocent one in all of this, the one they used as leverage to make me feel guilty. The message was wrapped in faux tenderness, as if my presence would fix everything, but I saw through it. This wasn't about Ellie, it was about them needing me again. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I knew what they were doing. On December 24th, another text from Dad. This one hit differently. It wasn't just about what I had done, but how I'd gone too far, how the family was falling apart because of me. You made your point, he wrote. We get it, but that's enough. We still need help. We're still your blood. The words blurred together on the screen as I read them over and over. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. It wasn't about reconciliation or healing. It was about survival, their survival. They needed me to pick up the pieces again, and this time I wouldn't. I didn't respond to any of them. Not a word. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. I didn't need to justify why I'd walked away. They had their chance and they'd blown it. I was done. Then on New Year's Day, I received another letter, this one from Natalie. It was longer, filled with details about how hard things had been for her, how Joel had filed for divorce, how Ellie was lost without me. It was heartbreaking to read, not because I felt sorry for her, but because I saw the manipulation in every line. Do it for Ellie, she wrote, as if that would be the magic word that made me cave. It was the same tired script they'd used for years, just in a different form. I didn't even read the whole thing. I threw it away with the rest. And for the first time I felt no regret. No doubt. No wondering if I'd done the right thing. They'd shown me who they were. And I had shown them who I am now. A person who doesn't have to be the sacrifice. A person who can walk away and never look back. I felt no guilt. No remorse. Just peace. The first step was the hardest, but once I took it, everything else fell into place. I updated my resume, brushed up on my skills, and started applying for jobs in a new city. The idea of leaving was terrifying at first, leaving everything behind, everything I'd known for so long. But then it started to feel like the right move. The city I was living in held too many memories, too many shadows of the past. It was time for a fresh start, one where I wasn't defined by what my family expected from me, but by what I wanted. Within a few weeks, I landed a job in a city I'd always liked but never considered living in. It felt like the universe was pushing me forward. I moved within a month, packed up everything I owned, found a new place, and settled into my new life. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. I didn't have to apologize for the decisions I'd made. I was free. But it wasn't just about the job or the new city. It was about my mental health too. I'd been running on empty for so long, trying to please everyone, trying to make up for the fact that my family had abandoned me emotionally, while I kept sacrificing myself to hold everything together. I knew I needed help, so I finally started seeing a therapist. Not the kind of therapy I thought I needed at first. Just someone to talk to, someone to listen. This was different. This was real. I was finally facing the parts of myself I'd ignored for years. The guilt, the shame, the anger, I'd pushed them all down to survive. But now I had to confront them if I was ever going to heal. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But for the first time, I was taking care of myself, putting my needs first without worrying about the fallout. Therapy helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for their happiness. I wasn't their savior, their ATM, or their emotional crutch. I was allowed to say no. I was allowed to take care of myself first. The healing was slow, but it was real. I started making friends in the new city, reconnecting with people I hadn't talked to in years. I remembered what it felt like to enjoy a simple conversation, to hang out without the constant pressure of needing to fix someone else's life. I rediscovered hobbies I'd forgotten about. I even started cooking again, really cooking, not just throwing something together. I learned how to take care of myself in a way I'd never done before. And when I looked at the new life I was building, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the peace. Grateful for the opportunity to start over. Grateful for the strength it took to finally walk away. I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I was moving on and moving forward. It had been a few months since I'd walked away, and I thought the silence was final. I had finally found my peace. I woke up each day feeling like I was living for the first time, not just surviving. But then on a quiet Sunday afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from my mother. I knew it was her handwriting before I even opened it, the looping cursive familiar in a way that still managed to stir something in me. I hesitated before opening it. The last few letters had been manipulative, filled with guilt and regret, so I wasn't sure what I'd find this time. As I read, I realized it was the same thing, just in different words. "We are still family," it began. A few more lines followed, saying how hard it had been without me and how they'd hoped I'd come back. There were no apologies, no real acknowledgement of the hurt they caused. Just more of the same, "We need you, it's not the same without you," the same old lines. It was a desperate attempt to pull me back into the cycle I had worked so hard to escape. But this time it didn't faze me. It didn't sting. It didn't make me doubt my decision. It didn't even make me angry. All I felt was peace. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to explain myself. The truth had already been said, and I had moved on. I folded the letter and tossed it into the trash. No drama. No emotion. Just quiet certainty. I went into the kitchen and made dinner, nothing fancy, just something simple. As I sat down to eat, I realized something profound. I was finally living my life for me. I wasn't carrying their baggage, their expectations, or their guilt anymore. I was free. And for the first time in years, I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. I felt no urgency to call, no need to mend anything, no guilt for what they were trying to do. I had done the hard part already. I had let go. And I was fine. More than fine, actually. I was at peace. As I sat there, finishing my dinner and letting the quiet of the evening settle in, I couldn't help but ask myself the one question that had been lingering in the back of my mind for months. Did I do the right thing? It was a simple question, but one with so many layers. I thought about the years I'd spent trying to fix things, trying to make everyone happy, trying to be the family member they needed me to be. I thought about the guilt, the sacrifices, and the way I'd let myself be used without realizing how much it was costing me. And then I thought about where I was now on my own, but more complete than I'd ever been. I wasn't drowning in their expectations anymore. I wasn't weighed down by their demands. I was finally breathing, living for myself, and it felt right. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about shutting them out because I hated them. It was about self-preservation. It was about realizing that for so long I had been trying to fill a void that no amount of helping them could ever fix. I had been chasing their approval, thinking that if I just gave a little more, maybe then they would see me. But I finally understood that they weren't the ones who needed to see me. I needed to see myself. And I did. I didn't need them to define my worth. I didn't need them to validate my existence. The decision to walk away was mine, and I knew deep down that it was the right one. They didn't want a son, a brother, a cousin. They wanted a fixer, a provider, someone to lean on when things got hard and forget when they didn't. I had to let go of the idea that I could ever be enough for them. But in doing so, I became enough for myself. So, did I do the right thing? The answer was clear. Yes, I did. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to anyone. Because in the end, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. And that was all I needed to know.